In this video, I'm going to show you how to lap valves. If you're replacing valves on an engine, this is a very important step. You can't just buy new valves, put them straight in. You need to put lapping compound on the edge of the valve, and then we'll put that onto the valve seat, and then we'll grind that. And what happens there is then this angle matches perfectly the valve seat, and that's what makes it able to actually add compression into your engine. While the valves are out, it's really easy just to get in here with a piece of Scotch-Brite and clean out some of the corrosion that might be in there. Since we're on the exhaust side, the two large valves are the exhaust valves, and there's definitely more of a carbon buildup here. If you really wanted to get some extra performance, maybe to get a few more horsepower, maybe not even that, maybe just a few more points, maybe a tenth of a horsepower, what I've seen some people do is port and polish insides of these valves, which means they take sandpaper, Dremel tool, and just get everything perfectly clean in here. It's almost like a mirror whenever they're done. What that does is it lets air flow through it a lot easier, which is useful in a race car engine, but in a daily driver, I don't find that very important. Now with some diesel fuel or kerosene, I'm gonna get some of that in there. That'll also start to loosen up the corrosion. With a toothbrush or an abrasive, something, that'll start to work it loose. There's definitely a lot of carbon buildup in here. It's definitely feeling a lot cleaner. I can feel it's smoother. Now most of that carbon buildup is gone and it's looking a lot better. We'll also get all the valves cleaned up and get all that carbon buildup gone. Now I'll clean it up with some diesel fuel. Now we'll wipe that off. And this valve is looking really nice. Even though that wire wheel does do a pretty good job, I think the Scotch-Brite's just a little bit more aggressive, and I think it does a better job. Now with a bit of Scotch-Brite, I'm just cleaning up all that carbon buildup that was in the cylinder here. This part might not be quite as necessary, but it makes it look a lot nicer, and I'll feel better knowing that this is really clean. Now with this all cleaned up, we can start to re-lap our valves into place. Now I have some valve grinding compound. I'm gonna put a little bead along the edge of the valve, and what we're gonna do is spin this back and forth. I've seen people use a drill. Personally, I don't like using a drill. I like going quickly in both directions with just by hand with a suction cup. I find with a drill it just spins in one direction. It kind of will make grooves. Going back and forth in either direction, I think gets you a better surface. Applying very light pressure, and every once in a while I'll lift it up and then put it back down, and sometimes that makes some of the compound go back under there, helps you grind it. So after you lap each one of these valves, of course we're going to clean out that compound, and you might think it's good, it might feel good, but the test is going to be, we're going to put a cork in here and we're going to fill it with water, and if it holds the water without the springs, then we know it's a good fit. So really just take your time whenever you're lapping these. I have this in the drill here, and what it does is I just bite on the threads that were on the suction cup, and it gives you just enough grip. And what we do is put it on the valve, and it might seem like this is going to go faster. And then even if you switch directions, first of all, it's just kind of hard to keep it in the middle. And it's moving the valve pretty good, but what I've found is it just never gets it quite as well as doing it by hand, and then I have to end up doing it by hand anyway, and honestly, doing it by hand doesn't take very long. It might take 5 minutes or less per valve, which adds up over all the valves, but it's not too bad. Eventually, we'll start to feel some of that grit start to work through, and you'll also feel it just starts to get smoother overall, and you'll definitely feel, I can also hear it. You can hear it mostly now, it's just the metal making contact. And once we get to that point, there's not too much more grinding we can do. And then we'll pull it out, and then I'll clean up the valve just with a cloth. And you'll see, once we wipe this away, you'll see which parts got lapped. And you want the whole valve to look a nice, even, like a satin metal color. And if we look right there, that's what we want to see. If there's like a black line running up or anything, you need to keep lapping until you get that out. And then also on your valve seat here, look at that and make sure it has that same nice satin color. And it's looking good as here too. Yeah, that looks really good. Whenever I get all that compound out of there, I like to put the valve back in place and make sure I don't have any grit in there, and I can feel it, and you can hear there's no grit in there, and you can actually feel it vibrating. That means it's perfectly seated in there, and same with this other valve. That's super smooth, and that's what we want it to feel like. Now we'll roughly get everything leveled in both directions, so we'll be able to fill this up with water. I've got a old plug made from an old fuel line, and I screwed that in the threads there, so this is watertight, and we can fill it up with water. We'll fill it right up to the line. Now we're just making sure that every single valve is covered. I have it full. There's not one portion like even up here. You don't want a little gap up there not to be filled with water. So the whole thing, you're able to fill it a little bit because of that surface tension. It'll sort of bubble over. That's where we want it, and we'll let this sit. We're checking for water coming out of here or on the intake side. And if there's water coming through the plug, you'll see it down through the bottom. But I think that won't be the problem. It's been about 3 hours and I don't see any decrease in water level. It looks exactly the same. I don't feel any water in here. It's still just as dry. Same on the intake side. This is the results we're looking for. It's still even bubbling over a little bit. You can expect a little bit of loss due to evaporation, but really that won't do much. I'm gonna let this sit overnight, and that'll really give it a good test. And this is already looking really good. That's how you just lap the valves, check to make sure they're good enough. I'm gonna do the same process to the rest of these cylinders, but you get the idea of what to do. It takes a bit of time to clean everything, lap it, check it, but it's definitely worth it. These valves need to seal in order to hold that compression.